Indeed, so that's interesting, Tanya. Thanks for that insight. Let's bring the panel back in and talk about the other side of this race with Mays Middleton, Chip Roy. Let's continue that conversation here. And this is just one of the races I want to talk about. Actually, let's shift off because we haven't discussed this as much. The Nate Sheets, Sid Miller race. This is surprising to me, Alfredo, because you have an incumbent in Sid Miller, the agriculture commissioner, who the governor moved on from and said, I'm going to support Nate Sheets, who started Nature Nate's and Honey brand and sold that recently. And as Bud said, you know, his theory is probably correct on this. Nate Sheets running away with this with more than half the vote in right now, with 57% to incumbent Sid Miller's 43%. It seems like that endorsement from Trump just came too late.
I think it did come too late, and Nate Sheets has certainly run an aggressive campaign, well organized, and he's competed well. What's surprising to me is, you know, Sid Miller has got a relationship with farmers and ranchers, unlike you know, probably any other agriculture commissioner since Rick Perry, and so it's a bit of surprise that he's not getting a bigger piece of the vote. But Nate Sheets has clearly run a strong campaign, and I do think that the Trump endorsement came in a little too late. How
big of a deal is this? Because we haven't seen an incumbent knocked off in Texas in a minute. I'm trying to think of the last one that happened in the last decade or so.
Ralph Hall?
I think it's a really
Ralph
big deal.
Hall, yeah, that's been, 10 years?
Statewide, I don't remember.
Yeah, statewide, I don't remember.
Yeah, and this is a big deal. And I think one of the things you see, you used to be, a lot of people in the cities didn't even vote in the ag commissioner race, couldn't even pick out who it was. In this case, you know, Sheets went, hey, you know what, let's talk to those moms in the suburbs who are concerned about what's in their food. Let's do that. Plus, the guy went everywhere. I mean, he has hustled. He's talked to, I think he's talked to every farmer in the state. I mean, he's really been everywhere.
Sheets has.
He's worked hard. He's worked hard.
One of the campaign for Julie Johnson is sharing out some texts that apparently were sent prematurely from the Colin Allred campaign when they were claiming victory. They said, we did it, we just won our primary. Now he's the official Democratic nominee. So it looks like a few of these were sent out by mistake pretty early because there's still a lot left to count.
There's nothing in.
And well,
we've got officially 14 minutes, but somebody might be at Dallas County election headquarters.
The polls are still open. No, come on. They might be down there.
That tells you who was confident going into the day.
That's a little embarrassing, though, right there.
You should have those written, but don't hit the send button yet.
Don't even put them in your phone. I mean, just have someone send them to you when it's time, or you know, hide them somewhere else on your phone. Which House district is it that Armin Mazzani? It's 96, right?
Let's see. Let me find that real quick. Hang on.
98. 98.
Yeah.
House district number 98.
We've got it pulled up here.
Viewers in North Texas have seen a lot of this on TV. Fred Tate endorsed by Governor Abbott, and then Armin Mazzani with 54% of the vote. He is leading this vote tonight, Jason.
Yeah, we've been sort of stuck at this for the last little while, though. This is about 56% of the estimated vote in right now, and Armin Mazzani still out in front there. That one has not been called. Still a lot of vote left to come in there. You know, one of the things that you guys were talking about was ag commissioner, and as we look out at the totals across the state, yes, the incumbent Sid Miller is behind. It would be extraordinary if he gets knocked out in this primary, but I would caution that one thing we're still waiting on here is, I mean, we've got 48% of the estimated total vote according to the Associated Press that has been counted so far. So more than half of the vote still out. And I know that Democrats know this well. Look at all of these white spaces out here, all of these rural counties. And again, Sid Miller popular with a lot of ranchers and farmers out in these rural areas. I would say that this one might at least tighten up by the time, I mean, this is Potter County, Amarillo here, which, you know, has a fair number of votes. We're still at 0 there. You know, you go down here, Ector County, where we have Midland, Odessa rather, and 0 there. You know, there's still a lot of vote left to be counted in a lot of these rural areas. So I expect that may tighten up some because most of the vote that we've seen in is coming from these big population centers where Nate Sheets has just been running the board in these big population centers, including Montgomery County, which is a big turnout machine for Republicans.
All right, Jason, thanks for that. Bud, let me see your phone here because one of our...
You're confiscating phones?
I'm taking phones. Don't be texting anything out here. So this is the Texas Tribune is reporting this. stunning night for Dallas County. Texas Tribune now reporting the Texas Supreme Court has temporarily blocked the Dallas judge's order to keep the polls open until 9 o'clock, ordering Dallas County to separate out votes from people who are not in line at 7 p.m. Not a final ruling. Clearly, though, Bud, going to create chaos tonight for the Democratic Party for all these campaigns.
They may not have separated those votes. If they knew the polls were going to stay open, why would they go out and draw a line at 7 and say, okay, these are the people who were here before 7, these were after, this is unenforceable?
But can't you see on the vote when you I mean, it's time stamped, right?
I guess so.
Yeah.
But that doesn't show you when you got in line.
They've done it before. They did in Harris County last
How surprising is this then, Matt?
I'm not surprised the Texas Supreme Court would issue an order that would keep people from voting. I'm not surprised about that at all.
But what does it mean, I guess, for people who have voted between 7 and 9?
Well, if those votes don't count, that's going to hurt Jasmine. There's no question about it.
And for these campaigns, though, that were dealing with all the confusion and getting their voters to the polls.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a fiasco that you had a situation in which Dallas County had to use a process that they hadn't used before, and it's going to affect the results of close races. There's no question about that.
Domingo?
It's a mess, and it's a terrible mess. It makes Dallas County look pretty bad. This is a national story. I mean, it's on all the national cable networks. And we're not going to know the outcome of the Senate race, probably, without Dallas County being counted. And if we don't, I don't even know how the Supreme Court's going to do this. Do we only count the votes that came in at 7 and not the people who voted between 7 and 9? And how do you separate those if you're an election judge? Just pragmatically, once they go in that box, they're in. So I don't know how that's going to be enforced.
Are the polls still open now? I mean, the polls are not supposed to be closed yet. Are they voting now?
They're supposed to be open for 10 more minutes here.
Right. And why do the Republicans care if the polls are open for Democrats till 9 o'clock? It's the Texas Republican Supreme Court.
And as Matt said here, I mean, at the end of the day, Domingo, if the Supreme Court decides, listen, these votes aren't counted, and it is what it is. If you guys couldn't figure out where to go vote, it's tough luck for you guys. That's going to impact Crockett since Dallas County is her home base, right?
It hurts Jasmine, definitely.
Wow.
And that might be the intent. I don't know.
I don't think that's the intent. I don't think they like the idea of extending voting hours. They don't like it in the general election.
But that's not uncommon, though.
Well, it has been common lately for the court to step in and to block anything done to extend voting, whether it's early voting hours or other voting hours. I mean, that's where the Texas Supreme Court is. That's where Texas Republicans are right now.
But how much control does the party have here? Is the Democratic Party going to have a say-so over exactly which votes get counted, which don't? What are the counts? What do the courts run? What does the Democratic Party run?
I mean,
they'll have a say in court.
Yeah.
But that's a good point. At the end of the day, if this is the party electing its nominee, I mean, couldn't the party make these decisions?
That's been the standard in the past, that the party runs its own primaries. And that's why this is different than a general election. But again, this is not unprecedented for the Supreme Court to step in and to discount votes.
Vinny, any reaction to this? No, man. I mean,
how are we going to know who to attack next week? So it puts. You know what? It's a bad look. It's a really bad look for Dallas. We always count on Harris County to screw up the elections, but now it's Dallas County's turn. So it's not good.
Alfredo?
I would say that the only thing that's unprecedented is that we're following, we're once again, we're following rules. Polls were supposed to be closed at 7 p.m. Democrats clearly mismessaged to their own voters how to vote and when to vote and where to vote. And so that's on them.
Domingo, if you're with the Tallarico campaign or the Crockett campaign for that matter, and there's 8 minutes left to go vote, I mean, are you concerned right now about this coming out?
Yes, and also Julie Johnson and Colin Eldred.
Sure.
They're concerned because that turnout and how it's counted could impact multiple races in the primaries, from the college, the congressional race in the 33rd to the Senate race. And I'm just thinking that it's going to be very difficult for us to know who the winner is by midnight tonight, probably, when it should have been an easy decision if we just follow the regular rules.
And Nathan Johnson sitting on 47% statewide, and Dallas could put him over a majority in the race for the AG nomination.
So at the end of the day, all these Democratic races, whether it's a congressional race with District 33, Colin Allred, Julie Johnson, or any of these statewide Democratic races, these are all up in the air.
They're going to be up in the air.
When would these be decided?
It could be
Matt?
weeks.
It could be weeks. To me, Domingo, that's stunning because
You know, I don't know why the Supreme Court got involved, who appealed. Well, that's kind of minutia, but it's important because if they withdraw the appeal, then whatever the district judge goes. But if they don't and they have to have a hearing on it, that could take weeks. And then we won't know who the winner of the Democratic nomination is for Senate or Congress or, like you said, the Attorney General's position until all those votes are counted. And then which votes are counted. And a lot of money's been spent,
Yeah.
a lot of effort, and blood, sweat, and tears out there on the campaign trail, and then you still don't know we might not know the answer tonight.
and
For the campaigns, this is tough too. I mean, you can't just go dark for a couple of weeks while the lawyers fight it all out. So you've got to figure out what you do.
What do you do?
Well, do they team up, and try to go fight this together? That seems unlikely. But you've at least got to keep yourself in the news, and you've got to keep going. This is bad news for both campaigns.
Wow.
I think the only people that are happy today are election lawyers.
Do we have any lawyers here on the panel that might be in court?
Go vote early.
Well, you know what? That is a great point. People should have early voted, and maybe the campaign should have really gotten the word out to go early vote. Let's bring in Jason Wheeler again on the big board here with some of these votes. And the early vote, which they were talking about, go vote early, we've talked about a lot.
A lot of that is in now.
That's what's in that we're seeing so far.
One of the interesting things that this brings up too, and the panel can take this up in just a moment, but this is a very conservative state Supreme Court, blocking the polls from staying open till 9 in Dallas County. The experts here are thinking that hurts Jasmine Crockett's campaign when it's conservatives here in Texas who want her to win so that they can run against her. So the conservative court would be undoing what they would like to happen there. This is where we sit right now. We haven't even hit that 1.4 million that voted early in the Texas Senate race on the Democratic side. James Tallarico still in the lead there, but man, some big holes here still. I mean, Dallas County just sitting there empty, and a lot of it rides on what comes out of Dallas County. So we're still waiting on that. But we're seeing the other big counties 60% in Tarrant County, Denton County at 67% in of the estimated total vote, and 70% of the estimated total vote in Collin County. But that's where we sit right now in that race. And the Senate race still very tight. It's getting pretty tight as we get close to almost to that threshold of 1.2 million or so who voted early in the Republican primary.
All right, let's bring in our friend Abby Livingston from Puck News. She's the congressional correspondent for Puck News. She's from Fort Worth. She used to work for the Texas Tribune for years, and someone we always rely on for insight here. Abby, I guess maybe you've heard what we were just talking about here, but the Texas Supreme Court has now intervened and said, listen, Dallas County, you can't keep the polls open an extra 2 hours here. Jasmine Crockett, Nathan Johnson, who's running for the Democratic nomination for Texas Attorney General, they're all counting on this Dallas County vote here. How much could they be impacted if the votes for the last 2 hours don't count?
I'm getting PTSD from election night 2000 with this kind of thing. This is
hanging chads.
My heart's stopping, and so you've got a state Supreme Court intervening. This is a big deal. I mean, Dallas is her home base. And I think they're going to be, but on the flip side, part of running a good campaign is knowing these rules and adapting to them. And so this is extremely complicated. We're getting into legal territory that's above my pay grade. But boy, this is getting complicated very fast.
At the end of the day, Abby, what happened here? Was it the Democratic Party in Dallas County that just didn't get the word out like it should have to its voters?
Well, I will just, I'm not well versed in this. What I will say is that Congresswoman Crockett has been running on name ID, and that she's posed her campaign to be very similar to Barack Obama's presidential campaign. But one difference is Barack Obama had an advisor named David Plouffe who understood all the rules, understood all the minutia, and this is one of those things a winning campaign needs to be able to adapt to, even if this feels stacked against them by the Republican-controlled state legislature. But I mean, we're just in pins and needles needles waiting for these results to come in, and now this curveball has come in. So I'm not as fluent as I'd like to be, but boy, this is a tangled web.
But this tangled web means there's likely going to be no finality to this or to any of these statewide races tonight, right?
Possibly. I mean, I guess it just depends. I mean, we don't really know. I mean, this is where it gets complicated with the boosted turnout in the Democratic primary. We can't really look to historical precedent because there's just so many people coming out that we're not used to, particularly in a midterm where a news organization might feel comfortable making a call. But what we're also waiting for, so Crockett needs all of these votes to come in from Dallas, but at the same time, typically in Texas, and it seems to be proving true again tonight, the cities, except for Dallas, have come in early. They count their votes faster, and then the rural takes a longer time. So we might see Tallarico has been campaigning very heavily in the rural areas. So we're probably going to see his vote total slowly tick up through the rest of the night as the rural vote comes in. So it's just this kind of seesaw thing we're waiting on as these outstanding dumps come.
And the other big competitive Democratic race is the congressional race, District number 33, the newly carved district, the one Jasmine Crockett is leaving. But Julie Johnson and Colin Allred, they're not going to know for some time who actually wins this race, right?
I mean, you can kind of sketch around on the Senate race, but this makes this almost impossible. And I think one of the biggest things in Washington and in Texas is everyone wants that race to be over. It's been rough, it's been nasty, it's been divisive, and I don't think that race can end soon enough. And that's just assuming it doesn't go to a runoff.
Any surprises you've seen tonight, Abby?
It's less so for Dallas, but Dan Crenshaw, Republican congressman from Houston, he was a shooting star. He's a huge fundraiser. He's extremely charismatic. We all thought he would run for Senate someday. He is getting absolutely walloped, and he has not had the support of Donald Trump. And that is just, I knew he was in trouble. I just didn't know he was in this much trouble.
Well, we have not paid attention to that race. Of course, Dan Crenshaw represents a district in Houston going up against State Senator Steve Toth. In that race. Abby, always great to see you, and thanks for making time for us tonight. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Let's bring the panel back in, and she just dropped one on us that we haven't been watching tonight. It's a Houston area race. Dan Crenshaw getting walloped down there. Bud, you surprised about this?
Well, I think, Steve Toth has established himself again as the faith and values candidate. He said, in a program not long ago, he said that the state would not be run right, the country would not be run right until only concerned Christians were elected to office, dedicated Christians. He rode the faith and values vote. Dan Crenshaw has made a lot of enemies by people who just didn't think he was pure enough. This is the Republican Party trying to purify itself. And, Crenshaw lose to Toth. Also, it gets back, Jason, to the problem that you go to Washington, you're out of touch. Toth has been there in the district, knocking on doors, talking to catfish dinners. He's been talking to everybody for years while Crenshaw has been in Washington. The local candidate always has an advantage over the candidate who's in Washington.
And you talked about the party trying to purify itself. Alfredo, this reminds me of the Chip Roy results we're seeing tonight. Chip Roy and Dan Crenshaw have been two Republicans not afraid to stand up to the establishment, not afraid to stand up to President Trump, and it looks like they might be paying for it tonight.
I don't know that it's a result of standing up to President Trump. I do think that there is certainly an idea amongst voters that once you go to Washington, you immediately lose touch. And if you're not taking care of the constituent services back home, if you're not flying back home when you're not in session on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, if you're not going to events, if you're not talking to voters, if you're not doing traditional campaign things that you ought to be doing as a congressman every day for 2 years while you're in office, you're going to suffer defeat.
What do you make of that, Benny?
Crenshaw. I think Dan Crenshaw is a different kind of congressman, and I think that's ultimately going to be his undoing. He went against folks on Ukraine, and he's gone against the president on some other things, and he's paying the price for that. They want somebody who's going to fall in line and kind of just go up there and vote the way he's supposed to vote.
It's 9 o'clock now, Domingo. We were waiting for results to come in, any time here. I suppose and I shouldn't assume because you know what that always means, but Wheeler, let me know when Dallas County starts lighting up over there for the early vote that's coming in. Wheeler's getting tired over there, just waiting for some of these to light up.
On a different tone, you know, Texas gerrymandered because Trump they ordered the congressional redistricting, and they said they were going to pick up 5 seats. I was looking at the results, and I believe that 2 of the districts, Vicente Gonzalez and Henry Cuellar, are both going to win their primaries, and I believe they're going to win 2 of those 5. There's a Republican congressman named Tony Gonzalez down in South Texas who's involved in a scandal where he had an affair with one of his staffers who committed suicide. And right now he's winning 45% to 39%. That might be a pickup seat for the Democrats if he comes out of that race as the Republican nominee. And it's very possible Democrats could win 3 of those 5 and collect all the ones in California. And it's a dummy mander instead of a gerrymander.
That's a good point, because that seat, Tony Gonzalez's seat, which runs from San Antonio way up towards Big Bend, that's gone back and forth, hasn't it, Vinny, from Republican to Democrat?
Yeah. I think if Gonzalez gets through the primary, he hangs on. Now, if he loses to the AK guy, Herrera,
Brandon Herrera, who's running against him right now,
then that could be a very different situation. He's a very polarizing candidate.
But even with everything going on, with Domingo mentioned about the staffer who he had an affair with, who killed herself.
Incredibly tragic story. Yeah, I still think he hangs on. I really do.
Alfredo, any thoughts on that one?
I think that's a race that we could lose if Tony Gonzalez is the nominee.
Yeah, okay.
I do think that it poses a big problem.
Matt?
Yeah, I think adultery might still even matter in the Republican primary, barely.
Why is everyone laughing here?
Depends on the race. It depends on
no relation at all.
It may not just be 3 seats. It could be 4, because I think Bobby Polito in Congressional District 15 also has an excellent chance to win. Now, for it to be a dummy mander, we'd have to actually come out better than 5. But I think, though, the fact that Texas collapsed to a demand from Donald Trump and surrendered districts to him and gerrymandered the entire state, particularly racially gerrymandered it, I think that really reflects the biggest weakness that Texas Republicans have going in the fall, and that is they're not Texas Republicans anymore. They're just Trump Republicans.
Bud?
Jason, and a little bit more about this stay. I'm looking into it. You know, the stay was
from the Supreme Court.
The stay from the Supreme Court that separates the Dallas votes before and after 7 p.m. was requested by Ken Paxton. And it was requested based on a state law that was passed last session that says before you request a stay, you have to ask the Attorney General. And so the Attorney General has to be part of the hearing. His office wasn't asked, wasn't invited, or notified anyway, and so he's asking under the law, passed a bill by Senator Betancourt, that this be overruled.
But wouldn't Paxton want to run against
Wouldn't
potentially Jasmine Crockett if we're waiting on her votes?
Maybe General Paxton didn't think that through.
I think that we're missing the forest for the trees here. Again,
right.
This is vote suppression. This is setting the precedent to suppress vote. That is the most important thing to them. They'll deal with whether it's Jasmine or whether it's James Tallarico, but they want a precedent in which they can control what happens on Election Day through the courts that they control.
Even though the Democratic Party totally messed up on this and didn't tell anybody how they were going to vote this time. I mean, I think this still goes to the party.
Start at 7 a.m. and they stop
Ends
at
at
7 p.m.
They've always done
That
it.
is the precedent.
As long as I've been involved in politics, disruptions on Election Day often resulted in them extending the polling places, like people standing in line, all types of things like that. And I think we've seen now, for the last 10 years, a series of court rulings, whether they're in state court or in federal court, that go to suppressing or making it harder to participate in elections.
Well, you have delays tonight. Williamson and El Paso both delayed for an hour. Those have not been affected or changed in any way. Only Blue Dallas County has been singled out.
Well, speaking of standing in line, Tiffany Liu has been covering the Dallas County turnout. She is with a voter tonight at 9:07. Tiffany, tell us who this is and why he's up so late.
Well, Jason, this is Manuel Vasquez, and he just walked out moments ago when we arrived at Dallas College Pleasant Grove Center, and he just told me that he wasn't able to vote tonight. He got here, he was in line around 7:05. Tell me about what you experienced today.
Yeah, when we tried to walk up to the polling site, it was a little right at 7:05. They shut down the doors. They said they didn't hear anything about us getting extended to be able to vote. We told them, hey, there's a court. We showed them the Facebook post from Dallas County saying that we're still able to vote all the way till 9 o'clock. Shut the doors. Everything was closed down. And then at the end, we did see when they were leaving, the judge yelled out, like, I have a real job tomorrow I have to get to, and just left without even, giving us consideration. There was about 30 people in line, so there was plenty of people here. A lot of them were confused. Where do we vote? Where can we vote? They went to other locations, and they were told, no, you have to come vote here. Then when we got here, they weren't allowed to vote. So there was a lot of confusion with the voters. Even try to call Dallas County elections officials, and they weren't able to. They were saying we're going to send judges out there, but at the end they were like it was just too late. They weren't able to have them here on time to take our provisional vote.
All right, so right now it's after 9 o'clock. You've been here for over 2 hours. Why did you decide to stay and to wait this long?
It's our right. I mean, it's our right as American U.S. citizens to vote, and I thought strongly, like, hey, if I don't talk about it, nobody else wants to talk about it. I wanted it to be known. This area might not be the richest area, might not be the best area to live in, but it's still our home. We still citizens of Dallas County. We still should be able to vote, and them not allowing us to vote is just a really injustice in today's election.
So you told me that around 30 people were here at 7 o'clock, but right now I only saw a couple of you trickle out. Did people just sort of leave because they couldn't wait anymore?
Yeah, a lot of them had small kids. A lot of them were frustrated from just being told to go to different poll places. And then we did get a phone call finally from one of the Dallas County election officials saying that they're not sending no judges. They're not going to be able to take provisional ballots for anybody. That's when we started making a list just to maybe somebody out there would listen to us and be like, hey, we still have people here that wanted to vote, and just get their phone number and contact information if there is anything that can be done.
So what's your next step right now?
Definitely complaining. We've been complaining to Dallas County election officials. We're trying to reach out to our elected officials here for Dallas, city of Dallas, so hopefully we could get some type of resolution with this.
Yeah, well, I know you waited a long time. You try to be very patient tonight. Thank you for speaking with us. We really appreciate it, and hopefully something gets resolved for you here. You just heard from Manuel Vasquez of Dallas County. He wasn't able to vote tonight, even though he got here right around 7 o'clock. Again, he mentioned the poll workers. It was shut down right around 7. They said they weren't able to stay here and let them vote, and so he didn't get to vote tonight. We're starting to hear some more of these issues from our viewers, and so we're going to keep on looking into that. We're going to contact, of course, we've been contacting the Dallas County Elections Administrator, and we're hoping to hear from them soon. Let's head it back to you in the studio.
All right, Tiffany, thanks for that. So just to lay out what she just said there, these Dallas County poll workers said at 7 o'clock, we're closing things up, come hell or high water. It doesn't matter what this Dallas County judge said. We're closing things up. 8:45 or so, we get this, or 8:30 or so, get this from the Supreme Court. That adds to the confusion, as Mr. Vasquez said a moment ago, about whether he can cast his ballot. We are waiting right now for Senator John Cornyn to come out in Austin and speak to reporters down there. He's not having an election watch party, traditional one. They had one planned. They decided to cancel that and just set up in a conference room at a hotel in downtown Austin. We're also waiting for Colin Allred to come out in the next few minutes as well. He's at the African American Museum in Dallas near Fair Park there. So we expect both of these folks to come out in the next few minutes, and when they come out, we will take their comments live here. But getting back to, so what happens here? I mean, it's 9:12. I don't think the big board's going to fill up tonight. It may not fill up tomorrow. So, Domingo, what happens if you're one of these campaigns who's looking for finality?
You got to keep campaigning. You don't know if you're in it or out, so you have to be in it until there's a final decision made. It's just sad that it's gone to the courts and not to the voters.
But I remember when Abby Livingston said a moment ago, this reminds me of 2000 down in Florida with the hanging chads, and they're trying to figure that out. I mean, everything shifted from the campaign trail straight to the courtroom in Florida there. Is this going to play out directly in the courts, or is there anything else that that the campaigns can make a case to voters for, Vinny?
Well, certainly the lawyers are going to get involved, but I think at this point, and Matt brought it up earlier, both campaigns kind of need to go on the attack, which is much better for Crockett than Tarrant.
And Crockett is speaking right now, the Congresswoman. Let's listen to what she has to say.
I'm sure you've been watching the returns, and none of the returns out of Dallas County are quite in yet. Dallas County should have the second largest voter participation of any county in this state. We don't have any of the results because there was a lot of confusion today. And so, you know, our Democratic Party chair, Cardall Coleman, he beat me to the punch, as myself and Colin all read. We're about to file a lawsuit to keep the voting polls open. We were able to keep the polls open, but I can tell you now that people have been disenfranchised. The reason that we knew that there were problems is because we were receiving the phone calls and the emails. The polls were supposed to stay open until 9, according to a court order. The Supreme Court, just a few minutes ago, just said, shut it down. The Supreme Court also said that they are to separate any votes out that came in after 7 p.m. So here's the deal. I have no idea how it is that clerks are going to know who was in line by what time, because the rule is that if you're in line by 7, then you get to vote. And so once there was a court order saying you had until 9, I'm sure that there were people that joined the line after 7. They now are telling them that you have to separate the votes out. What this means is that we will not know what votes are to be tallied from Election Day out of Dallas County. For sure, we won't know that tonight. So knowing that Dallas County is a big dump of votes, we, in my opinion, will not know the election results overall tonight. We need to see the Dallas County votes to see where they are. I mean, if the early vote comes in, which we may have the early vote soon, if it comes in and I'm losing Dallas County, then we know kind of where this thing is going.